the action that there it is. SMU at the 11 seed, checking in at number 10 overall. So, final count. The Big Ten gets in Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, and Indiana. The SEC gets in Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee. The ACC gets in its conference champion Clemson and the SMU Mustangs. Then, of course, you get one team from the Big 12, one team from the Mountain West, and one independent. The first team out is the Alabama Crimson Tide. They were number 11 in the final committee rankings. The second team out, the Miami Hurricanes. They're now at the 13 seed. Initial thoughts now that we know it is SMU in, it is Alabama out.
Very clear how the committee feels about conference championship game losers. Penn State only falls to 6, Texas falls to 5, and even without Brett breaking the news 20 minutes before the show even freaking started, I feel like when you saw where Texas and Penn State were, you knew what the decision on SMU was going to be at that point.
I mean, I just think the closeness with which SMU played Clemson, combined with the fact that Oklahoma, got handled by LSU in the final week, the week after destroying Alabama, that was kind of the path, right? SMU needed to show that they could play with a playoff-worthy team, and they showed that. I mean, the Clemson needed a 55-yard field goal to walk them off there in the final minutes. So the fact that Bama has 3 losses and multiple blowout losses there is definitely an issue for them. And I mean, would Bama beat SMU? I think it's probable, but in 2024, like, are we really sure? Would you say they're a lock to beat SMU? I don't think there are any locks in these games, to be honest. Like, 0 upsets in the first round would surprise me at all.
And we will be getting those official lines and spreads here as we spend about 30 minutes or so breaking this all down with you. Before we get out of here, we'll make some picks on the national title game and so much more. Any like in the
Saban looks pissed, by the way. I got him on mute, but he's doing a lot like that. Like head shaking. Why do we even play the game? I mean, look, ESPN has the rights to the SEC, so I'm sure they're a little twerked that the SEC only got 3 in, but this wasn't a great league this year.
You really think it wasn't a great league, or just not like rating wise as good as it has been in the past?
I just think it lacked like the elite teams.
I
don't think this Georgia team or this Texas team would have been competitive in prior like 4-team playoff formats. I don't think we have real elite teams this year. Like, to me, it doesn't really stack up like we have in the past. I think a lot of that's quarterback play.
Oh, very much so. Because I mean, who's the best quarterback in the country? Dylan Gabriel? Like, would you say that like with conviction?
The top 2 quarterbacks in the SEC aren't in this game or are not in this playoff, at least for my money. Right?
Cam Ward's not in the playoff. Shedeur Sanders isn't in the playoff.
Exactly.
It's like,
Curtis Rourke's not in the playoff.
Yes, he is.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Drew Aller's in the playoff.
Drew Aller's in the
Gabriel's
playoff.
in the playoff. Gunnar Stockton is in the playoff and will be for the next few months.
Yeah. What do you think ultimately ended up helping SMU here?
Its schedule and the fact that it came back.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if I'm an Alabama fan, even if I'm not, like, I completely understand why you're pissed off, because you could argue based on, if you want to do the predictive metrics, you'd be favored over them. You can argue about your overall strength of schedule, although there's also the point where does your strength of schedule matter as much if you keep losing to it? Because it kind of proves you're not strong enough to deal with the schedule. But I get it. And SMU, had they played Alabama's schedule, I don't think goes 11-1 in the regular season and reaches the ACC championship game. But they played the teams they played. They beat them. They got to the ACC title game. They lost on a last-second field goal. Like, you can argue until the cows come home about it. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. I think the committee went with its philosophy of they don't want to punish playing in a conference championship game. And had Alabama not lost to Oklahoma or Vanderbilt, guess what? It's in the SEC championship game, and it's in the playoff no matter what the result of that game was.
Also, I think if you look at Alabama's schedule, it aged poorly over the final couple weeks of the season. Right?
LSU is not as awesome as it looked at the time.
LSU getting drubbed by UF. Wisconsin failing to make a bowl game. You
Yeah.
know, like that, you thought down the stretch, okay, that would at least be a win over a bowl team. Not so. USF kind of collapsed, right? I mean, what they finish 6-6? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well,
Yeah,
that's to your point. So, like when I listened to
Western
Ward,
Kentucky didn't win the conference championship. Auburn failed to make a bowl. Oklahoma didn't make a bowl, right? I mean, these are like there's a lot of kind of on that schedule that looked by name value and just by projections, I would say that would be. But I think Oklahoma did make a bowl. They went 6-6, but it just didn't age very well. Vandy kind of collapsed down the stretch and lost a whole bunch of ball games. Missouri didn't look like Missouri was blown out multiple times. So, I think that is part of it.
Do you think Alabama fans feel like? I mean, there's going to be fans that are angry, but do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would guess that some Alabama fans get it, and some were ready to go poison the trees at Toomer's Corner for some reason. Again, that's just how it works. Like, some of them will be reasonable about it. Some of them will be super pissed. None of them will be happy.
What about the now that we see those matchups and we see them line up? Which one stands out to you as the one that was? Which one stands out to you as one that you're already starting to get excited about, or start to feel like you've got a good angle or some good intrigue on?
The most interesting one to me is the one that has been discussed since this format was first released, because I immediately started seeing tweets once they started finally releasing this bracket. Texas at the 5 seed getting Clemson in the first round, and then they'd get Arizona State in the second round. And I saw a lot of like, wow, that's a pretty sweet setup for the Longhorns. My counter to that is, how many teams did Texas beat this year that were better than Clemson?
I mean, best win is Texas A&M, and I don't know if you could tell me Texas A&M is better than Clemson.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know the game's in Austin, but I'm not just going to sit here and assume Texas is going to beat Clemson. Like, from what we have seen from that team over the last month and a half, you're assuming a whole heck of a lot there. So I think defensively they're great, but as we talked about on the show last night, offensively, this Longhorns team has been pretty for most of the last 6 weeks. They have not been spectacular. So they're going up against another good defense. You do have that whole Quinn Ewers, Cade Klubnik rematch. If you are a fan of high school Texas football, you remember the first meeting. Now we're going to see the second meeting with Cade coming back to Austin to play in it. So there's a lot of intrigue in that game, because I do think Clemson, when we were viewing what the 12 seed was going to be, I don't think Clemson is what we had in mind as being the 12 seed in most of these formats.
Agreed. Also, like, Boise is probably not much better than Arizona State. So I don't know that this 5 seed is quite as easy as some. Like, would you rather have the 5 seed, or would you rather have the 6 seed?
The 6 seed by a lot.
I don't know if it's by a lot, but I think the gap is pretty clearly different. Like, 5 and 6 to me are very close, where a lot of people thought that 5 would be a massive advantage and 6 would just be, whatever. To me, the real gap is 6 to 7.